Welcome to another session. I hope you are well, and as I continue in this series of conversations regarding how to understand and how to conquer depression, I'd like to welcome you to a new session. In today's session, I'm going to ask a question: How fatigued are you? How fatigued are you? In the session I covered previously, I concluded with the reference to that most people, irrespective of geography, but particularly people in the West, irrespective of age, um, we find that we have this symptom of fatigue that is more prevalent than in our society today compared to any time in history. And the question is why? I used some examples. I said, uh, you start from about age 10 onwards. Between 8, 10 years and 17, that group in the UK, they consume uh, the most amount of energy drinks, despite being very young. For the adults from 18 and above, the average adult, 80% of all adults in the United Kingdom consumes a minimum of 2 cups of coffee every day. Um, a significant part of that group say that they cannot function without coffee. We know that our diets are very, very heavily concentrated um, with sugars, carbohydrates, and starches. We seem to be in this constant loop of being addicted. The root cause we'll deal with in the sessions that follow, but fundamentally, there seems to be an issue of fatigue, the lack of energy. And when people talk about being anxious and being depressed, uh, there is an element which is on the physical side that we do not address. Now, one of the key things in today's session that I want to get across is you cannot manage something unless you measure it. Or perhaps that's too strong a statement. So let me rephrase that statement. In order to manage things properly, it would be essential that you have the ability or you attempt to measure it so that you can understand where you are trying to get to, and what that gap is. The gap is where you stand. We stand in the gap. And so for most of us, we have to start with understanding and seeing if we can manage fatigue, but we start with measurement. How do we measure whether we are fatigued? It's subjective. There is an objective way, but we all collectively agree that there is a subjective and an objective component. I'm going to push this aside, and rather than say subjectively, this is what you should look out for, or objectively, this is what you must look out for, I'm going to ask you to do something that combines both, which is to focus on the symptoms. The concept is symptom reliance. Can you rely on the symptoms that you have as a person or that you observe in other people? Whether you're a healthcare professional or whether you're a mother, a father, a loved one, a brother, sister, you can observe other people. And what you're looking for is symptoms. Symptoms that indicate the person has very little energy, or symptoms that help you understand whether there is a big gap between your energy generation, your energy delivery, and your energy spending. Very important. Now, we understand the whole concept that the energy just is cause effect, um, law of sowing and reaping, the law of polarity, opposites. And we generally know that action and reaction are equal and opposite. We understand that from a very conceptual basis. We also understand that if you feed in an input and you consume some of that input, and if your consumption is less than what was fed in, you have a surplus. If your consumption is more than what was fed in, you have a deficit. And so what we then have is this, what we call this energy deficit. We also have physical energy deficit. We have emotional energy deficit. We also have spiritual energy deficit. The mental and the physical are very closely linked because the mind and the body work like partners. One follows the other, and sometimes one leads and the other follows. We know that emotion comes from movement, from motion. I can move myself and get really excited, and I can change my emotional state. Similarly, if my emotional state is in a very, very excited or excitable place, I can find out that physically I've got energy. If I feel down and depressed, I might find I feel lethargic, feel tired, slouch my head, my speech is impaired. Why? No energy. So therefore we understand this relationship between the mind and the body. The key thing is, in finance, let me segue, in finance we understand the concept that in order for you to have an abundant financial life, there's a very fundamental concept that everybody must apply, which is to spend more than you earn, so that you can do something with the rest. Whenever your upkeep or spend exceeds your revenue, you put yourself in a state of negative cash flow, which is why people start to use credit cards or borrow money or use loans, because they are spending much more than they earn. In finance, we understand for general financial management, you cannot spend all of what you earn because you then have nothing to either save or invest. You must spend less so that you have something left to invest or to save. The body works in the same way. It's simply a system. If you generate a certain amount of energy and you spend less than you generated, then you'll be in a state of abundance, surplus. If you generate a certain amount of energy but you overspend, then you'll be in a state of deficit. You'll find that you struggle because there isn't as much energy available to meet your demands. So what generally happens is we try to pay attention to what we call the gap. The gap, which is the difference between the energy you're generating, the energy you deliver, because you can generate all this energy, but if it's not delivered to the areas of the body that needs it, then it means the body is still short. Think about this. I can walk into my house and I can bring out a bucket of coal. I can bring out enough firewood to heat the entire house. And I could look at the respective fireplaces. And if I kept the coal next to the fireplace, I will not have heat. I need to put the coal or the wood into the fire, provide some spark, some flames, and over time, the wood, or rather the energy that was in that wood, is then converted to heat energy and is transmitted through the house, radiation, convection, or more, and then I feel comfortable. The body works in the same way, just a simple system. We go into a state of negative energy balance if we spend more than we get delivered. Now here is the key thing. This is why some people who think that they might have depression should not be too quick to diagnose themselves. Remember what I said at the start, it could be just a clinical picture, a physical picture. There is a root cause. We're trying to get to the root cause. The fact that you have negative energy imbalance will cause the body to force you to spend less. By doing that, your cells and the functioning capability of your cells will slow down. Why? Because if it doesn't slow you down, your organs will fail and you and I will die. Our human body is such a clever system. Think about the car. I used this analogy in 2 sessions prior. You're driving the car. You run out of fuel. Rather than keep going, the car does something to stop the vehicle, to stop you, so that the car's engine doesn't fail, so that the car doesn't go into a state of disrepair. It stops you. Why? It protects you. In a similar way, when we use too much energy, when we are in a state of negative energy balance, our systems start to shut down so that we can slow down, spend less energy, so that our cells do not malfunction, so that we do not die, so that our organs do not fail. There are symptoms that we have in our body that protect us from death. So sometimes when you say, I feel depressed, granted, that's how you feel. The question is why? Could it be that some of your cell functions are slow? Could it be that some of your organs are slow? Could it be that energy is not being delivered in the right way on the physical side? Now, we will get to the emotional and the mental side, but we're dealing with the physical side in this series of sessions. And all of those steps are being taken by the body to protect you by slowing down your energy expenditure process. Your brain, the immune system, the body starts to use less energy and therefore reduces any damage that you can cause to yourself. The body is simply giving you warning signs that something isn't right and that your body is not in a state of positive energy balance, but in a state of negative energy balance. Now, this might seem as though I've just been talking about the ether. So, in the session that follows, what I will do is I'll go through some observations. Remember, I talked about the symptom reliance, subjective and objective, how you can simply make an observation about yourself and determine whether you are in a state of abundance or in a state of deficit. Now, I hope today's session has been useful.